Joan Crawford, aside from my mother, was the only woman that really scared the hell out of me.
All you can buy up these stairs is a bullet in the head.
I met her once at a reception for Pepsi-Cola. I was just a young kid at the time, and I looked up at her, and she had these eyes, these glaring eyes, and these penciled eyebrows, but her shoulders were what got me. She had this square kind of Dior suit on, you know, that went from here like a V, and I looked at her, and I was so intimidated, I was petrified. At that moment, I knew Joan Crawford. I really did. I was a producer at Paramount, and the book came to me manuscript, and I was fascinated by the book. I was a little bit intimidated by it because biographies in general, and Hollywood biographies in particular, very rarely do well at the box office.
Theater owners voted you box office poison.
But the more I read it, the more I liked it. And I had just started my new relationship with Paramount, and I called Barry Diller and Michael Eisner at the time, and I told them this is the first project that I wanted to do, and they were very excited about it, and so we purchased the rights to the book.
That book, the Mommie Dearests book by Christina Crawford, it was the first shocking kind of tell-all book. Mommie Dearests was the first of the tell-all book about growing up with a movie star that was the other side, wasn't the happy, pretty side. I just felt that the issue of child abuse, the issue of mother-daughter relationships, the competition, the edge.
Why must everything be a contest?
Redemption, all of the things that go into making a person what they end up being was embodied in that book. And if I could capture that, I felt I would have something that would be enduring. And so that's what attracted me to it. And then I did a great deal of research with friends of mine who knew Joan quite well, like Kirk Douglas and Greg Boutzer, who was a very famous attorney, who told me that Joan used to make him walk 3 feet behind her all the time and carry a little dog. And this is a powerful man. But she mesmerized them all. She was just the grande diva. She was, as we say in the film,
Hollywood royalty.
She was very strange in her quirks, very demanding, as was Faye. And I think we realized it. I think we realized that character.
Why don't you try to understand a woman?
Many people took a shot at writing the script, but nobody could get the essence of what that character was about and what it was like to work in Hollywood at that time and the ups and downs. And she was definitely down.
Box office poison. Box office poison.
That box office poison line came out of real life interviews that I had. When you're a star, it's quite a come down when you suddenly are called box office poison on the front pages of Variety. So we tried to stay authentic.
Would you freshener Mommie Dearest?
I guess I related to Christina. I had a mother that I had a similar relationship with, which I was able to resolve, but much later on in life, that kind of love-hate relationship that a child can have with a parent. I had no doubt that my mother loved me, but my mother was also abusive in certain ways, and I think I was able to bring that. And so that conflict was something that I think I could only express by writing it myself. And also what it's like to be, for Joan, to be misunderstood as she is growing and her stature is growing and she's still a captive of her past.
My way through school scrubbing floors.
So I felt I might as well do it because nobody seems to be able to translate what I'm asking them to do. And that's how I decided to write the script. I always liked Frank. I mean, we were social friends. I was friends with his wife at the time, Barbara. And we started to chat and everything else, and I told him that I was acquiring the rights to Mommie Dearest, and now he went berserk. He couldn't wait to talk about it, and I felt that this was a director I could really collaborate with. He had the sensibility, he understood this conflict that attracted me to the project, and I fought for him. And that's how we got to do it, and the rest is history.
By the way, Mayor thinks you'd be wonderful in the picture you wanted.
What? What, Greg?
My original Joan Crawford was Anne Bancroft. And Anne was very, very interested in playing the role. She had a different take on the character and a different sensitivity. But Anne was capable of being big, too. She was capable of really bursting loose because she's a consummate actress. And it just didn't work out. I got a call from Terry O'Neill, who was living with Faye Dunaway at the time and was a very famous photographer in London. And he and Faye were very, very, very close. And he said, Frank, Faye would make a great Joan Crawford, and I think she would like to do it. And I said, well, she certainly can do it. There's no question about that. But I was concerned because Faye had somewhat of a reputation of being a perfectionist.
If you can't do something right, don't do it at all.
And so I was reluctant. I wasn't sure. I went to see her at the time she was doing, I think, a movie of the week on Eva Perón. And I went to visit with her, and she seemed very enthusiastic about the role of Joan. And I said, I have to think about it. And she said, well, can we have dinner? I said, well, sure. Why don't you come over to my house and you'll join us for dinner at my home. So I waited for her. It was a Friday night. Bell rings. I go to open the door, and there is Joan Crawford. She completely made herself up with the eyebrows, the white flower, the black 40s cut suit. And she was so much Joan that I said, okay, you've got it. That's it, Faye. It's yours. Casting a movie is probably the most difficult thing you can do, aside from writing the screenplay, because everyone has their own visions of that character. The director does, the producer does, the author does. But there are great casting directors in California, and they bring in people, and we weren't looking for names. We felt that with Faye, we had enough of a headliner that we could go for really solid supporting actresses and actors to fill in the rest of the film.
There'll be time enough to understand when I'm old.
There was no question that when Diane Scarwood read, she was going to be Christina. She just knocked my socks off.
I think I may be pretty good.
I got involved with the film through the proverbial audition process. My attraction to the part of Christina was one of compassion. We all have dysfunction and problems and challenges that we have to deal with, but I felt very close to her.
I love you, Mommy dearest.
My reaction to the book, I think, was one of deep sadness. It's a very provocative, endearing story, and I felt that if I had the opportunity to be a part of something that would not only entertain people, would also serve as a teaching tool to open some doors.
Why did you adopt me?
I was also very glad that someone had taken the time and the opportunity to open some doors, which I think Christina definitely did, to expose skeletons.
Maybe I did it for a little extra publicity. Okay, Christina. Oh, a little more, Christina. Okay.
The little girl we cast after we casted the older Christina, because we had to get somebody that would have a similar look. And she had the poutiness, and she had the spirit and the spark that I felt the character needed as a kid.
She wants everything to be perfect.
This time, it's even more important.
And anything I do, there's room for Retanya. Because she's a generous actress, and she helps. A generous actress is somebody that will always go underneath, always allow somebody else to take center stage. But without this person, you will disappear at center stage. And she has that ability. She's a remarkable woman.
Actually, I met Joan Crawford once. I was doing photo doubling for Mia Farrow in Rosemary's Baby. And there was a scene we filmed at the Sullivan Theater where the Fantastics was showing. It's cut out of the movie. But in the movie, Joan Crawford and Van Johnson were playing themselves in the lobby of the theater. And Joan Crawford walks up to me and introduces herself. She says, "Hi, my name is Joan Crawford." And I about went, wow. I had seen a lot of Joan Crawford movies, of course. I was a huge fan. So doing a movie about her life was like stepping back in time for me, like stepping back into the 40s.
Joan, listen to them. They're so happy for you.
I found out from talking to Christina that my character, Carol Ann, was based on 2 or 3 people that worked over a period of 20 years for Joan, 20 plus years. And they sort of combined her into one character, which I thought was smart because it gave a continuity to it. And one of the scenes that was cut out kind of gives you an idea of where Carol Ann comes from, is a scene that they actually shot in front of the old MGM executive office building. Joan Crawford is coming out with her limo from the studio, and we're there with her autograph books and everything. And Joan Crawford stops and rolls down her limo window and she says, "Carol Ann, are you here again?" And then she looks and she says, "How would you like to work for me?" And I say, "Oh, Miss Crawford, this is a dream come true." And she opens up the car door. She said, "Get in." And I get in, and I'm just, I mean, this is like my life. Working for Joan Crawford was the only thing she wanted in her life, and that's what she got. When I went to interview with Frank Perry, when he talked about a lot of things and what it'd be like to, you know, work for Joan Crawford and like work for celebrity, live in that era, that time. And that's what we did for an hour, and I left thinking, oh, it would be wonderful to work with this man. Then about a week later, I got this horrible, horrible flu that was going on, just the most terrible flu I've ever had in my life. It was just out of it. And the phone rings, and it's Frank Perry on the phone. I can barely talk. "Well, love you, want you to do the part." Great, fabulous, just, you know. And you're flying out New Year's Eve to California. It was like, I thought to myself, I'm going to make it. I don't care. I have to get better. I have to get better fast so I can make it on this New Year's Eve flight. And that's when I flew out to Los Angeles to do this movie. I've got to hand it to Frank Yablans, the producer. He was a Class A act. He put money into the week of preparation for the makeup, the hair, the costumes. He really allowed it to happen in the sense that he wanted it to look good. He wanted it to look fabulous. Of course, he knew, Frank Yablans knew everybody's name. He said hello to everybody. He was like the producers in that era.
One thing that I always insist on in any film that I make is authenticity. And I promised Faye, who's absolutely insane when it comes to detail, we would not have any synthetics. We would build the furniture. We would have everything done exactly the way it was done if we were shooting this in 1940. And that's how you make a movie, because if an actor feels that ambiance, if an actor's wearing the right clothes and has the right set decorations, they become that person. They suddenly, it enables them, it enhances their opportunity to perform. And any movie I do has got to be authentic, because there are too many imitations in life as it is.
Thank you, Connie.
Joan.
All the indoor sets were on the Paramount lots. Just going into those sets and watching her walk down the staircase or up the staircase, that magnificent set that was her house, it was a transforming, you just got transformed. You were put back into a different time.
We had some wonderful people working on the film. The costumer was Joan's costumer at one point. I had Joan's original hairdresser.
The costumes were beautiful. Irene Sharaff came out of retirement to do these wonderful, wonderful costumes. And she was there, hands-on. She knew that whole era. She understood the whole look of that era. So everything looked just magnificent.
My God, Carol. She's still picking out my clothes for me.
Yes, I was impressed with the sets and the wardrobe. I was 24 at the time and quite excited about the journey that I was going to have to undertake for myself, too, as an individual and as an artist.
She's doing quite well, don't you think?
She's improving.
So we really loaded up the film with people that could help us realize this extraordinary character.
We're ready for you, Miss Crawford.
One scene that I didn't get to do, which broke my heart because I think it was the essence of Joan's character, would have been the opening of the film that we ultimately couldn't put it because we couldn't shoot it. And that scene was opening up with her doing the ice skating movie where she's skating all around and everything else, and then she trips and she cuts her ankle, and blood is coming down her skate, and they carry her into the dressing room with the blood running down her leg, and she has a scene with Steve Forrest, who plays the character, the love interest in it. He says, "You can't go on, you're hurt very bad." She says, "No, I'm a star, I'm going on." And there's a knock on the door. "Ready, Miss Crawford?" And she says, "Yes, I'm ready." And she goes out and she does it with the blood dripping down. So we get a real insight into her character, that nothing is going to stop this woman, not even blood running down her leg. But we couldn't shoot it.
Excuse me.
Faye, it was a pleasure to work with. Man, we had a couple of bumpy moments, basically for fitting and for makeup, because she wanted so much to be Joan that she actually took on her persona and her airs. The only difficult time I had with her was on the very first day of shooting, and we started with the scene where they're walking down the beach, and she's deciding that she wants to adopt a child. She was taking too much time with makeup, too much time with hair, too much time with everything, because she was a little bit afraid. It's, the first day of shooting, and so time was very crucial to us because we only have so much light. And I knocked on her door and I said, "Faye, you got a crew waiting around, and you're setting the tone now for the film." And she said, "Fine, I understand, Frank, no problem." She got out, we never had another problem.
The first scene I worked on with Faye was the first time I met her. And it was an interesting experience, to say the least, because the first scene with her was a scene in Mildred Pierce where I'm reading the thing with her from Mildred Pierce and she slaps me.
Maybe that's why Father left.
It wasn't as hard as it could have been, but it did turn my face around.
I'm sorry I did that.
I was praying after the first slap, that was it. But there were like three slaps total, and then there was a print. So I got a sense of who Faye Dunaway was because she took over that set. And it was her set. She was a very commanding, strong presence. This was the reality of that first day. And I got slapped that first day. Okay.
I'd have rather cut off my hand.
She became Joan Crawford at that moment. She never stopped.
I love all of you.
She was every bit Joan. She never stopped being Joan from the minute she made that commitment.
Working with Faye was very interesting because we didn't have a great deal of communication, and I don't know whether that was just because of Faye and how she worked as an actor, as a film actor, because I've since learned that you don't have that opportunity. That's another reason why I do so much homework, because I don't rely on anybody else. And I think one of the reasons that made the scenes that I had with Faye that much more compelling, because Diana, was also trying to talk to Faye and just observing her and seeing how she was on the set and how she affected people.
Oh, yes. It was thrilling.
Mara Hobel was a fascinating little girl. She was 9 years old at the time and actually had dark hair. But when they bleached her hair out, it was really uncanny. And to this day, when people come up to me and talk about Mommie Dearest, they think that that was actually me that played the younger role also. Yeah, I was there for a very long time.
I'd rather you go bald to school than looking like a tramp!
Some people say, well, maybe it turned out to be more of a caricature than a character. But when you're dealing with something that's bigger than life, you have to present it bigger than life. And so we did, and I'm very proud of where we went with it. There were a couple of times I guess we could have toned her down a little bit, particularly when she attacks the rose bushes, which is considered one of the rare moments on film.
Royalty!
I've got to say that I think she was really wonderful in the movie.
Everyone already knows. Box office poison.
There were moments when it is over the top, and she chose to go over the top.
Box office poison!
I take a little bit of blame because I should have asked Frank to pull her back a little bit on that scene. But, you're watching this thing and you're watching her go and you're watching where she's going with it. And I got swept up in the moment, of this this absolute rage, you know, Hollywood royalty. This woman has just been given a death sentence in Hollywood. And so she has all this rage in her, and it probably went over the top.
Tina!
Maybe in another lifetime I'll bring it down a little bit.
Bring me the axe!
The Bring Me the Axe scene was done on a stage in Paramount. It was interesting because the trees were harder to chop down than they look, you know. And Faye really got into it. She was very physical in that scene, which is exactly what she had to do. But the insert of the axe really finally toppling the tree, that was Frank Perry cutting down a tree, because you needed that muscle behind it to make that tree topple. I gotta tell you a story. When I was in Christina Crawford's house, I did look in her closet. She does have a lot of wire hangers.
It wasn't a particularly difficult scene to shoot. Faye knew what she wanted to do in that scene. And it was Faye who came up with the look for the scene and the makeup and the babushka around her face.
No wire hangers!
The scene was written. It wasn't like we had to improvise or make up the scene. What Faye brings to any scene that she does is, again, I use that word, it sounds trite, but it's authenticity. She knew what she wanted to do with that scene. And she let her rage build, and she let her rage build. That rage is inside of her, and she just brought it up to the top. It was very surreal to watch because it's almost uncontrollable rage that she pulled up from inside herself. And Perry and she worked very closely together, and Perry understood her.
It's always fascinating to watch the whole process, the directing process, how a director gets the work done, and what degree of tiptoeing one has to do.
Clean up this mess!
She got expelled.
That's a lie.
I admired Christina at that young age to be able to stand up for her in the midst of an interviewer being there. There was someone else present. This was an empowering moment for Christina that you can't do this. This is not right. It was very challenging and trying because in the rehearsing of it, she was going to actually slap me. That physicality takes you someplace else.
Why can't you treat me the way I would be treated by any stranger on the street?
Because I am not one of your fans!
That is the ultimate put down that you could give Joan. Because everything was about her fans. Remember, we set that scene up in the garden an hour and 10 minutes before that, where she has her fan clubs. And they're all out there and they're idolizing her and she's signing pictures and she takes that scene very seriously. This isn't something to throw away. This is her essence. And for her own daughter to say, I'm not a fan, that is, you might as well have shot her.
Marlon Brando's sister, who plays the editor, she and I were the ones that pulled Faye off of her. And that was a very dramatic moment. It was a very hard moment, not only emotionally, but physically, because they were in a physical fight. In the middle of the thing, Faye's elbow goes back, so when I fall back, that was totally me falling back on my duff. But it worked for the movie.
It was challenging for me as a performer because of the places that I had to go emotionally, the sad, hurtful, dark energies that were still residing in Christina at varied points. I felt relieved and I felt purged at the end of the filming that I could release that and walk away from it. I had to entertain it for many months and play with the shadows and play with those demons.
You're free.
So it was a relief to let them go. Dance lightly with your demons.
I loved working on this movie. It was a real Hollywood movie experience.
Every film I made had great memories. What a wonderful life to get paid, to suspend reality for 12 weeks or 14 weeks for doing something that you would die to do for nothing. It's just a great life. Aren't we all in some way villains? And aren't we all in some way angels? That's what makes the human an interesting subject. Joan Crawford, she was who she was before she ever got to Hollywood, or she wouldn't have become what she became.
Theater owners voted you box office poison.
Hollywood doesn't destroy people. People destroy themselves.
And the winner is Joan Crawford.
This is an industry that you're going to have high highs and low lows. You learn early on to deal with rejection, and you learn not to take your success too seriously because it's going to be fleeting. And if you don't learn those things, I don't care whether you're in Hollywood or in Peoria, Illinois, you're going to get destroyed because you're not true to yourself.
I love you, Mommy dearest.
When I told you to call me that, I wanted you to